All right, so this exciting story broke today or yesterday. I've seen it on Quillet. I've seen it in a few other places. I thought that the Arrow would probably be the source because apparently the woman in the middle, who was part of this team of crack academic investigators, she actually is a contributor or journalist for Arrow magazine. She has some sort of pull there, so I thought that she'd be the source to go to. And I like on this that they have like a 47-minute read for you to emphasize how long reading this article would take. Yeah, I'm not going to read the thing in entirety. If you want to check it out yourself, you can certainly do that. So the story here basically is that they for the past year, these three academics have been writing articles and trying to get them published in prestigious peer-reviewed journals, and have met with a great deal of success. I'll skip the first paragraph here and start. You can watch the video they have like a 6-minute video just explaining what they did and why they did it. It's quite interesting, and we'll give you the laydown. So what they did is we spent time writing academic papers and publishing them in respected peer-reviewed journals associated with fields of scholarship loosely known as culture studies or identity studies, for example, gender studies or critical theory, because it's rooted in the postmodern brand of theory, which arose in the late 60s. As a result of this work, we have come to call this field Grievance Studies, in shorthand, because of their common goal of problematizing aspects of culture in minute detail in order to attempt diagnosis of power imbalances and oppression rooted in identity. And this is brilliant because they've really cut to the quick, as it were, of what motivates this postmodernist theory. These courses, it's resentment. It fundamentally is. It's a very ugly base human emotion, and it's the opposite of gratitude or appreciation for what one has. It's all rooted in this drive towards perceived unfairness or pulling other people down in order to elevate yourself. And that's it's basic, it's biological, and they've created this whole intellectualization, this ideological framework to manifest these dark demons of their personality and give it some justification. So, yeah, it would postmodernism at its fundamental level is a rationalized, a thin veil, a pretty academic mask on the root of human evil, or a great part of human evil. We undertook this project to study, understand, and expose the reality of grievance studies, which is corrupting academic research, because good open faith conversation around topics of identity such as gender, race, sexuality, and the scholarship that works with them is nearly impossible. Our aim has been to reboot these conversations. Excellent. But of course, you can't really do this because you can try, and there's value in the attempt, but one has to understand that the whole point of these postmodernist fields is not to be a good actor, to actually shut down these conversations and come up with tactics to shut down any sort of rational conversation. So the emotionalization is the goal of the postmodernist theory. It's the raison d'etre. It's to be able to invoke these darker impulses with impunity. We hope this will give people, especially those who believe in liberalism, progress, modernity, open inquiry, and social justice, a clear reason to look at the identitarian madness coming out of the academic and activist left and say, no, I will not go along with that. You do not speak for me. Absolutely. This is great that this study was done. It was a fabulous amount of work. I don't know the other two people involved, but the gentleman here, we'll hopefully find his name out again shortly. I recognize him from speaking with Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin in Portland. So I know he's been very active in this regard. This document is a first look at our project and an initial attempt to grapple with what we're learning and what it means. Because of its length and detail, it is organized as follows, putting the factual information up front and the more detailed explanations thereafter. Our methodology, which is central to contextualizing our claims, a summary of this project from its beginning until we eventually expose and are forced to go public before we could conclude our research. An explanation of why we did this, a summary of the problem and why it matters, a clear explanation of how this project came to be. The results of our study, including its full list of all the papers we submitted, their final outcomes, and relevant reviewer comments to date. A discussion of the significance of the results. A summary of what comes next. So this is very thorough. They're putting it all out there, and it sounds like they actually wanted to take this farther than they did, because it seems until we're eventually exposed and forced to go public before we can conclude our research. Interesting. All right, methods. Our approach is best understood as a kind of reflexive ethnography. That is, we conducted our study of a peculiar academic culture by immersing ourselves within it, reflecting its output and modifying our understanding until we became outsiders within it. Interesting. And it's. I'm glad that someone actually, with the time and resources, actually did this, because it needs to be done. This needs to be exposed, and this postmodernism, these disciplines actively work to attempt to work in the shadows and hide and obfuscate what they're doing. Their language and everything is about creating obfuscation, like about creating hidden, hiding both their agenda and what they're doing. It's almost like building a wall, one might say. Our objective was to learn about this culture and establish that we have become fluent in its language and customs by publishing peer-reviewed papers in top journals, which usually only experts in the field are capable of doing. Because we came to conceptualize this project as a kind of reflexive ethnographic study in which we sought to understand the field and how it works by participating in it, obtaining peer reviewers' comments about what we were doing right and what needed to change to make absurd theses acceptable was central to the project. Indeed, the reviewers' comments are in many ways more revealing about the state of these fields than the acceptances themselves. While our papers are all outlandish or intentionally broken in significant ways, it is important to recognize that they blend in almost perfectly with others in the disciplines under our consideration. To demonstrate this, we needed to get papers accepted, especially by significant influential journals. Merely blending in couldn't generate the depth necessary for our study, however. We also needed to write papers that took risks to test certain hypotheses, such as the fact that their acceptance itself makes a statement about the problem we're studying. See the paper section below. Consequently, although this study does not qualify as being particularly controlled, we did control one important variable: the big picture methodology we used to write every paper. Yeah, this is very interesting, and it's well read. It's easy to read. They're very competent, obviously very competent writers, and I'm not surprised that they were able to copy the style of these papers. Our paper writing methodology always followed a specific pattern. It started with the idea that spoke to our epistemological or ethical concerns with the field, and then sought to blend in the existing scholarship to support it. The goal was always to use the existing literature offered to get some little bit of lunacy or depravity to be acceptable at the highest levels of intellectual respectability within the field. Therefore, each paper began with something absurd or deeply unethical, or both, that we wanted to forward or conclude. We then made the existing peer-reviewed literature do our bidding in the attempt to get published in the academic canon. This is the primary point of the project. We just described is not knowledge production, it's sophistry. That is, it's a forgery of knowledge that should not be taken for the real thing. The biggest difference between us and the scholarship we are studying by emulation is that we know we made these things up. This is an excellent point. And it's one that really, again, I used cut to the quick, but it gets to the the reason for the broken methodology behind postmodernism is that it isn't about knowledge production, it's about sophistry. The conclusions are already known. They're trying to justify their behavior. Like I said, they're trying to justify these emotional demons, these desires to control and tear down society and increase their own power. But and in order to do that, they use broken methodologies because the conclusions are already known. It's it's not up for a question like who's the oppressor and who's the oppressed and who needs to be teared down. That is a foregone knowledge. It's all about the methodology of creating sort of the illusion of some sort of academic rigor or knowledge production to justify their preconceptions, their preconclusions. And then also the other aspect of it, of course, is to create this this shield. Like there's all sorts of soft rhetorical and power tactics to try and divert any sort of criticism away, so others can actually see what they're doing, and they can control things. So it's power politics in its purest form. This process is the one single thread that ties all 20 of our papers together. Even the 20 papers, they did 20 papers. Wow. Even though we use a variety of methods to come up with the various ideas fed into their system to see how the editors and peer reviewers would respond, sometimes we just thought a nutty or inhumane idea up and ran with it. What if we wrote a paper saying that we should train men like we do dogs to prevent rape culture? Hence came the dog park paper. What if we write a paper claiming that when a guy privately masturbates while thinking about a woman without her consent, in fact, without her even finding out about it, that he's committing sexual violence against her? That gave us the masturbation paper. What if we argue that the reason superintelligence AI is potentially dangerous is because it's going to be programmed to be masculinist and imperialist, using Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Lacanian psychoanalysis? That's our feminist AI paper. What if we argued that a fat body is a legitimately built body, and as a foundation for introducing the category for fat bodybuilding into the sport of professional bodybuilding? You can read how that went in Fat Studies. So here's some of their paper ideas. And I'm going to actually sort of skip down. Let's see if we can find these 20 papers. 7 papers accepted, 7 papers still in play, 6 retired as fatally flawed or beyond repair. Okay, so some of the ridiculous papers were resisted. That's good to know. Skipping down. Why did we do this? That'd probably be interesting. The plan, how it came to be. The results of all 20 papers. So they have the dog park. Human reactions to rape culture and queer performativity in urban dog parks in Portland, Oregon. Fat bodybuilding. Dildos. Going through the back door. Challenging straight men. Homohysteria. Transphobia through receptive, penetrative sex toy use. So I think this is encouraging straight men to use dildos to masturbate in order to create sympathy for queer people. So yeah, Hooters. Yeah, so you get the idea. I think there's a lot of great papers here, a lot of good material here. Please go check it out for yourself. Have a great day.